Well, thank you very much. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Andertons TV. My special guest today is Jason Richardson.
What's up?
I'm still literally sitting here kind of staggered, but I've seen you kind of do that on YouTube, but it's quite different seeing you sort of do it in person as well. That's some rapid playing. So for people who aren't so familiar with you, tell us, kind of like where you're at now and what's happening with you now, and then we'll dive back into childhood memories and where it all started. So.
All right, fair enough. So right now I'm on tour. My drummer and I, Luke Holland, we're on tour with our original music with Dream Theater in Europe. Which is why we just played in Bulgaria last night and I had to wake up at 4 a.m. and now I'm here hanging out with you. I'm full-time with All That Remains now, which is the metalcore band, which is even crazier because I started listening to them back when they were like on Guitar Hero and stuff in like mid-2000s and all that. And now I'm playing full-time with them on top of doing my solo project as well. So that's pretty much currently what's going on with me. And then Luke and I are working on new music too to get the next release out.
You mentioned Guitar Hero there, and was that your? That wasn't your sort of entry into. I can imagine like tapping buttons as fast as you possibly can.
No, I sucked at that game. I was so bad at it. Like there is nothing like this whatsoever. Not even remotely close. I could do the right hand stuff, but I could never do the left hand stuff. I remember there was that Dragon Force song that was on there where you had to like cheat to kind of do it. You had to like hold down with one hand here, and then you'd have to be like, that's like literally the only way you could realistically play it on the video game. But right after that, it's got the part where you're just picking as fast as you possibly can. And I could always play that part totally fine, but none of my other friends could ever play that. Like, why are you so good at that part? I was like, oh, that's the easy part. I can't do that. That other stuff that you guys are doing on expert mode.
Oh man, well I think that's the first time we've ever talked about Guitar Hero on this, but that's cool. So take us back then to that first moment where, you first saw someone playing guitar on TV or at a concert or whatever, and you thought, that is where I want to be.
So my dad is a bass player. So pretty much ever since I've been alive, there's been instruments around. I've seen videos of me just like as a little kid, like before I could even walk, like banging on a piano, like a little toy piano and stuff like that. I got a toy plastic guitar from my grandpa on my mom's side when I was like probably like 4 or 3 or something like that. Young. I played that until it literally fell apart. I still have at my parents' house like a small, it's an actual guitar, but it's like about like this big. It's just like a little tiny acoustic guitar for like a kid to play. That one's still around somewhere. So they've always just been there just because my dad was a musician himself as well. And
can you remember sort of, stylistically what was on, what was your dad playing and what kind of
he loves the
music
Beatles, stuff like that. Beatles, Grateful Dead, pretty much all the classic rock stuff like Led Zeppelin, Frank Zappa, pretty much everything in that vein.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but like none of that stuff really rubbed off on me like too much. Like I definitely I like a lot of those or some of the songs, but like as the catalog as a whole for me personally and my taste, it never really for whatever reason I never really like got like super attached to any of that. I definitely respect the crap out of it. That's for sure. Like because obviously I wouldn't be doing what I am right now if it wasn't for any of those guys. Like it wouldn't be a thing. Like literally at all. But over time, I started to get, I went through, multiple different phases as like everyone kind of does, like trying to figure out what they're listening to. At one point I had a mohawk and a bullet belt and was listening to like terrible punk music. I go back and listen to it now. I'm like, what was I even thinking? Like, I'm not gonna name any names, but like the production on the recordings were just so terrible. There's nothing catchy about it at all. I'm just like, I was like glad I got out of that phase.
but as a guitar player now who's obviously really pushing himself from a sort of the speed and the technique sort of side of things, were there players at that time? I'm just trying to think. Are we talking did you get into the whole sort of cacophony thing or Yngwie, or was it,
definitely Yngwie. I knew of cacophony. I learned a bunch of Jason Becker songs. That's I'm remembering that correctly, right? Yeah. I learned a handful of Jason Becker songs, not cacophony in particular, but essentially what kind of started the whole metal thing for me was I saw my dad had this CD collection of probably 1,000-something CDs just on a bunch of shelves. And the way this shelf was built, you could see the artwork from the first CD in each row off the side, and one of them was Painkiller.
Right.
Judas Priest.
Right.
Yeah. And so I just asked him to listen to it one day because the album is insane looking. It's like a demon biker dude going into a pit of hell. So it just looked absolutely crazy. And I asked him to listen to it, and that kind of started me getting into metal. So he had 5 of their CDs, and that one, I think Ram It Down was my favorite out of all the ones that I listened to.
So your dad had quite an eclectic taste in music, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Going from the Beatles to Judas Priest.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep.
And was that, so, from a relatively, what sort of age are you now when you're talking about this, first listening to Judas Priest?
I'm 27 now, and back then I was single digits. I can't remember, Yeah, I can't remember maybe the specific age, but anywhere from probably 5 to 9, if I had to guess.
So are you at this stage? Are you just completely self-taught at that, or are you already getting lessons?
I was playing piano.
Right.
At the time, I was taking piano lessons from this nun.
Right. I'm trying to picture this thing of this sort of 8-year-old boy basically getting lessons from probably some old, a nun on the piano going, yeah, Judas Priest, do you know any Judas Priest, Sister Mary? She's probably not really.
No, I never learned as much as I could from her because I would never look at the music. I would watch her hands. Yeah. I had trouble with learning how to read the music and stuff like that because I would just watch what she was doing and then remember it from there. So I didn't make it quite as much progress as I should have, but then I started playing drums. My dad got me a drum set. I did that for a really long time. I still play drums. I would be a lot better if I actually practiced as much as I did at guitar, but then fifth and sixth grade, I tried playing violin for a couple of years, and then I started focusing on guitar because I was playing drums full time. That was my main focus, and then I heard Train of Thought from Dream Theater. Right. Yeah, my dad and I were at Guitar Center one day, and there was a video of at their drummer at the time, Mike Portnoy, on the just on the TV or something playing. My dad asked the guy, he's like, "What band is that dude in?" Holy crap! And then that was the most recent album at the time, so he got it. I heard that, and I was like, I need to be able to write songs. Right.
So Dream Theater. If you had to name, that moment, if you like, where you go, okay, my life is now mapping.
Yeah, that made me want to start focusing on guitar. Was Petrucci, and that album Train of Thought was I need to learn how to write songs, and I want to learn these songs as well, and just see if I could even do it.
And so getting your chops to the sort of level that you're at, is that just years and years and years of being sort of quite focused on stylistically that kind of music and just working?
Yeah, definitely. I was very focused on the progressive metal, shred stuff, pretty exclusively for a couple years, right when I first started playing. Because the very first stuff I started learning was Metallica, Judas Priest, all that kind of stuff. I also was really into Children of Bodom too for a while because I was really infatuated with the synth guitar lead harmonies, and both Dream Theater and Bodom have that in every single song. Yeah. But after that, I think there was probably about 10 months to a year where I had been primarily self-taught, besides my dad, showing me chords and figuring out Blink-182 songs and stuff like that for me, this one in particular. My dad figured that out for me. That was one of the first things I learned on guitar, besides I specifically remember learning GCD and thinking I'll never be able to play this. This is impossible. Yeah. I specifically remember that moment. But after that, so I got the tab book for Train of Thought, and I was learning, and actually going back on it now, a lot of it was incorrect. This was obviously 15 years ago or something, and recently, since he invited me to teach at his camps, one kid had a Train of Thought book, and I opened it up and I looked at it, and I went over it. I was like, okay, sick. They fixed all of it. It's this is 100%. This is exactly on the money now from what I had back in the day. Because I went to go learn the tab, and I had the Live at Budokan DVD. and I was like, that's not what he's playing, like, at all. So I had to, like, the notes were right, but they weren't like the right positions, if that makes sense. So I kind of like went back and forth from that DVD and the tabs that were in the book to figure out how to play it like exactly how he was doing it.
How are you? Whereabouts in the States did you grow up, by the way?
Northern Virginia,
Okay.
a little bit south of DC.
Right. So, was there much of a scene for people of your age of that kind of progressive, sort of rock and metal music? I'm sort of thinking, did you find it easy to get a band together, or?
It took a little bit of hunting. Essentially, this was when MySpace was still a thing. When we formed the local band that I had going at that time, and I just had, I put up guitar videos on YouTube. They were all embedded into my MySpace, and like people would go and look and try and find all that stuff. And then someone in like a neighboring county or something stumbled upon mine and was like, dude, you gotta check out my other friend. And he's playing like Children of Bodom songs like perfectly clean. Yeah. But he lived like 30, 40 minutes away from me. So they needed another guitar player. So I had just got my first Music Man, actually, the JP, the JP7. It was the only one out at the time. It was a Pearl Redburst one. And we went over there, all met up and practiced. My dad drove me over there. We all got along really well. And then we started playing together for like the next couple years. And then I ended up becoming like best friends with the bass player of that band. His name's Danny Hauser, and I got him into a band called Veil of Maya, and now they tour the world internationally, and he's been with them for like 7-8 years now or something crazy like that.
I do love how as much as social media and all those kind of communities, people sort of say, oh, nobody talks to anybody anymore, in real life. But I think that's a great example of how, particularly if your interests are in something that aren't as totally mainstream, it's a great way to meet other people who have those interests.
It's a great networking tool. There's definitely a lot of things that would not be happening for me right now if it wasn't for social media.
So as far as the learning, the learning was going, did you do, at what point did you start doing real formal kind of tuition stuff, or has it throughout your whole life? It's just been you working it out.
No, I definitely had a lot of teaching. I have to give all of my technique credit and like stuff like that to my old teacher Matt Mills. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have these chops right now, and that's because. So what I kind of deduced on my own, like over time, like teaching people as well, was bad habits and muscle memory, like developing that over years and years and years of like, quote unquote, like improper or like inefficient technique. It becomes much harder to break after you've been doing it for like 10 years or something like that. Because I have people that come to me that have been self-taught for like 15 years sometimes, and I like see how they're doing, like compared to what I know works for me and how I can get to be able to play that crazy stuff. I'm like, you're gonna hate everything I'm about to tell you, because like breaking habits like that have been there for that long is like it's infuriating. You have to essentially start from like the bottom again.
What are you using yourself then as a sort of a technique, in terms of economy picking and the sort of left hand technique?
It's more the cleanliness and all that stuff is way more right hand type stuff. So I pretty much like one of the things that Matt explained to me was like. I try to maintain this kind of hand shape, like a flat one, kind of like that, not like a fist or something like that. Like try to make it as flat as possible so you can have as much surface area available to keep everything muted.
Right.
And one of the other things too, especially with arpeggios that I found, so you're not supposed to obviously pick with your arm. You don't want to forearm pick ever, because that's really bad for your elbow and all those tendons and stuff like that, and you won't have anywhere near as much endurance. So with arpeggios, see how my arm is still going up and down, and it's just a little bit of a flick of my wrist at the top and the bottom. That's so I can keep all of this, everything quiet at all times, no matter what. And if sometimes I've noticed people that come to me for technique advice, what's one thing that they'll do is they'll plant their hand here and like turn their wrist as opposed to their whole arm going up and down to keep everything muted. Because when you do that, like all these strings here open while you're in like the top range of their arpeggio. So like, see what I mean? You need to hear a little bit of that subtle like string noise in the background as opposed to. And one thing that my teacher would do is he would go like this while I was playing. to make sure I was muting properly.
Yeah.
So that's a really good test too if you want to like try and like see if you're actually playing clean. So you do it to me. Just go like this while I play.
That's the closest I'll ever get to actually playing at that kind of speed. You have a very classical, I mean, a footstool.
Yeah, I literally have one of these things.
And the guitar on your left leg, which is, is that because you've had sort of shoulder and back pain, or is that just you find it difficult to play? If the guitar's
one thing I definitely always notice. Well, when you have it like this, like one thing that after I've been sitting like this for a while, I maybe notice like my hip gets a little sore, and I will switch over to here just to like change it up a little bit, but. This is, where the guitar is going to be when you're standing. Like, even if you have your strap like a little bit lower, it's still going to be like right on your midsection right there. So it's way more accurate to how it would be as if you're playing live. Like when you're playing, like you don't have your guitar over here when you're standing up. It's never like that. And then your shoulders just flex the whole time too. So your arm right here, like your rear delt and all that starts to get super sore after a while. But this just is like you're able to sit up straighter. The guitar is in a more accurate position. For me, it just feels a lot better, and I can play a lot cleaner as well when it's over here on my left leg. Sometimes my leg does fall asleep though, and you got to be like, yeah.
It's interesting. Certainly the last 2 or 3 years, I've been trying to play a bit more, and I do play with the guitar on my right leg, and I'm conscious of the fact that I'm sure a lot of my shoulder and back problems are entirely, I kind of feel like I want to sit like that, but it doesn't feel natural for me to play like that. So it feels natural like that, but then that creates shoulder and back problems.
That's pretty much like what I was just saying a couple minutes about, like muscle memory and habits and all that stuff. It's definitely like what your body is used to, but so it would be definitely a little foreign at first, but the more you do it, the easier and more comfortable it's going to feel. Yeah. And these things are awesome because then you don't have to find I know. Like literally anything else to put your foot up on in order to do that. So that's why I pretty much just always try and travel with one of these now just in my backpack. Yeah. Because they're only like $20 too.
Exactly.
You should carry them.
We do sell those. I think they're even less. They're only like $12 from Andertons. Yeah. So anyway, are we at a point in your kind of life now where you're starting to think, okay, this is my career now, not just my hobby? I don't mean as in at 27. I mean. We got to sort of mid-teens, I think, in the sort of the journey. When Matt Mills was giving you lessons, how old are you? How old were you then?
I was, I think, 14. Yeah. When I started taking lessons from him, or no, 13. It was 13 when I started taking lessons from him because I got my first real electric guitar at Christmas of when I was 12. Right. My dad got me a Gothic Black Gibson Les Paul. Nice. It wasn't one of the like super crazy high end ones, but it's still a Gibson though, which is like a sick guitar. I played it so much to the point, and like with my shirt off a lot too for whatever reason, that it like rubbed the paint off right here, so you could see the wood grain. Like it's a huge like chunk of paint missing right here. I would play it so much, and it would just rub against me, and just eventually just all came off right there.
I love guitars that look like that.
Yeah, but so it's got its use.
Was that so? Whilst at this point, presumably life is going okay. So have I got to choose higher education or what is my life going to do? But so is it about this time that you were thinking, yeah, I think I can see myself doing the guitar as a career?
Yeah, it definitely got to that point where I was like, this is the only thing that I want to do. And I'm not going to focus on literally anything else besides this. And I would come home from school and just like practice everything that Matt had showed me like for hours. I would learn Dream Theater songs in their entirety, like even the 20-minute ones, like from front to back. And that's just like what I did when I got home from school, was just learn all of these songs that I thought were cool. Bodum included, Yngwie, Paul Gilbert, Jeff Loomis, like pretty much all of those guys. And that's just like literally what I did for fun when I got home from school, was stuff like that, video games, and then practice with my band, hang out with friends every now and then. It's probably more guitar and music stuff than actually like going and hanging out with people.
Oh, that's cool. And
paid off though.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you go straight from school then into touring in a band? And
so what happened with that was I had done 2 summer programs at Berkeley when I was still in high school. I did the guitar sessions the 1 week guitar sessions one summer, and then I did the 5-week program the summer of my junior year of high school. And while I was at the 5-week program, I got a partial scholarship to this school But then senior year, there's this band called All Shall Perish that posted an ad that they needed a new lead guitar player. So I learned a couple of their songs, sent them a video, completely not expecting to get a response back. My dad helped me film it and upload it to like a private link and like all that stuff so we could send it to him. And then I had an email back in like 12 hours.
That's it. That's it. Be here tomorrow. You're in the band.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and then I dropped out of high school. Went on tour with them. Still don't have my GED. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I was already in Europe playing festivals with them while my friends were graduating. So I think that was probably a best move.
And never look back.
Nope.
Presumably. So that's just.
And it's just been going ever since then.
So tell us a little bit about the difference between, say, writing your own material with Luke versus being in a band, and what is it that draws you to wanting to write your own stuff?
Yeah, well, the thing with the all the bands that I ended up joining was that they were already established and had a fan base that it was not, I don't want to say expecting, but they they had an entire fan base built on a specific sound, that if someone else is to come in and change all of that up, that's not a good business decision in order to just write what you want to write. You know what I mean? So I would have to be pretty conscious of that when I was writing for these other outlets. And it got to a point eventually with the one band that I was in, Chelsea Grin. I'm still good friends with all of those dudes, but they're a very niche, kind of metal, super heavy, breakdown orientated band. And we put out one album and an EP together, and then it came time to do the follow-up album to the LP that we released, and I wrote my song Retrograde that's on my solo album now with Luke. And I sent that to the guys in Chelsea Grin, and they said it was too complicated and it was too much for Chelsea Grin. So that was kind of the straw on the camel's back for me, where I realized I was I can't keep doing this. I can't just keep intentionally watering down the type of stuff that I want to be writing. It just wasn't the right outlet for what I wanted to be doing. Yeah. So once I realized that, that's when we did one or two more tours together, and we all talked together, had an amicable split. And then they're still doing really well. Now I'm getting essentially to write whatever I want with with the solo stuff with Luke. And in particular, there's one song called Hose Down where I had the epiphany where I had reminded myself, got to after this crazy shred section part of the song, I was like, wait, I don't have to put a breakdown here. I can literally do whatever I want and no one can tell me no. So I put this insanely hard to play bluegrass shred part right after it.
Bluegrass shred, is that a big genre? Super popular.
Yeah, some bluegrass does shred really hard. Some of those guys are flying. I don't know how they do it, especially on banjos and stuff like that. I can't do that shit. It's so hard. So after,
give us a bit. You can't leave us hanging there. I need to see some.
It's the hardest part on the album. So let me see. Actually, I'll go to the right
now.
patch. It's actually called Hoe Down. There we go. And speaking of this, since we have this cool new guitar right here, this is on the coil splat coil splat mode. Yeah. Something to that effect.
I just need to get you a pair of dungarees and a bit of corn to hang out your mouth. Yeah. That would have been perfect. I could have used that for the main video.
But yeah, it's pretty much just those are all variations of the part that ended up in the song.
That's an interesting one to sort of lead on to, because I wanted to ask you about how much of a challenge is it writing these unbelievably complex pieces of music and then taking them out live? And the pressure, presumably from the audience, wanting to see it played.
Yeah, there's definitely kids out there with their arms crossed, phones up, waiting for me to mess up, which they get footage of it every night. I definitely end up shooting myself in the foot a lot of times, especially with that part in particular. I wish I had recorded it about 10 BPM slower, because then I'd be able to pretty much nail it every single night. That's honestly, that hoedown part right there is the hardest part almost on the album, just because before I went to go record it, when I was pre-proing everything, when I'm pre-proing, I don't think it's efficient to spend like days or hours at all practicing a part just so you can record it and listen to it back. So it's 2019 now, so we have Pro Tools and all of this kind of stuff where we have all this technology we can use to our advantage. So I'll literally just record things halftime while I'm writing, and then 200% it, listen to it back. If it's awesome, sick. Then I can move on and keep working on the song. I'll come back and practice it and get it down later. So that part in particular is how I ended up shooting myself in the foot big time, because now I have to play it at like 175 BPM live or something crazy like that, and it's really hard. But it pushes you to get better.
It's just really hard. There's no special tip there, boys and girls. It's just really hard.
But that technique, if you are gonna like you do that, you have to remember you do need to be able to play it live. Like you can't just write some crazy thing with like the halftime technique and just like not just assume you're going to be able to do it. Like you have to remember, like, I need to be able to play this live eventually, like no matter how hard it is. So, but doing that really does push you to get better, because there's been other riffs and stuff I've written too where I've used that, like where it's just one of my songs called Tendinitis. I'm not even kidding.
Yes. No, I've heard it.
And the main riff in
I got it just listening to it.
Yeah.
It's like...
Dude, I don't know how I don't have it from that song. But the main riff in there was I used that same technique again. But what I did was I took an arpeggiator that and I messed around. It was this synth called Zebra from a company called Yuhi. I found out about it watching Hans Zimmer's masterclass videos. And so I found this arpeggiator in there. It sounded awesome just as like the stock preset. And then I changed a bunch of the notes around, fiddled with a bunch of like all the oscillators and all that stuff. Kind of got it to be like a bit more of like an original tone and not just the preset. And then I just had the idea. I was like, oh, I wonder what this arpeggiator would sound like if I figured out how to like change it into a riff on guitar.
Right.
So I just figured it out really slow. I was like, all right, cool. So that was just one repetition of it, just. And then, so it's like, oh, okay, but it needs to be like twice as fast and have it like really fast double bass underneath of it. And then, so I recorded all of it. I catered it. I threw it in Guitar Pro as well. Once I had the idea of it down, I put it in Guitar Pro. And then I changed some of the notes around to kind of match the chord progression of the programming that was going on. So that way it had some movement in it as well. And then I just ended up learning it later when it came time to record it for the release and to be able to play it live. So in that, it just ended up.
That's amazing. Interesting songwriting technique. I'd never even, like you say, getting a basic idea around, but then digitally kind of moving the notes until you get a sound that you like or a sort of progression that you like, a melody that you like, and then learning what you've artificially kind of created. That's cool.
It's kind of, it's just like if you have it up here, it's like you don't need to necessarily be able to physically perform it in order to get the idea out. It's just kind of like using the tools to your advantage that we have now. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Does your drumming background, do you think, influence? I remember once interviewing Misha from Periphery, Misha Mansour.
Yeah, I love them. Spencer's on one of my songs, the vocals from them.
Cool. And it was just interesting how he definitely said that, you know, almost everything he was writing was inspired by a rhythmical sense in his head, rather than it all just being about sort of, you know, chord progressions. And
and I definitely identify with that as well, because I'm pretty positive Misha is also, or he's definitely a drummer too. Like anytime he gets behind a kit, like you can tell he 100% knows what he's doing when it comes to all that, and he's a good drummer too. But I definitely agree with that as well. A lot of the more rhythmic based stuff, like all the weird polyrhythm patterns and stuff like that. I definitely think I wouldn't be able to have my head wrapped around that quite as well if I hadn't played drums before I started playing guitar as well. Because I did all the rudiments and all of that. I would practice with marching sticks on a pillow, and like sometimes people see me do double strokes and they're like, "Dude, you do that in like better than most drummers that I've seen." just like that. I can't even. I'm sucking right now, obviously, but yeah.
So come on, you're doing this support tour with Dream Theater. Is that just like a dream come true? How did that even come about?
I was sitting at home one day and I get a text from Maddie because I got to be friends with all of them met John and got to know him like through Music Man at NAMM and all of that. And then our solo album came out and I sent it to him and he like absolutely loved it and like started talking to me like more and more from there. He invited me to teach at his summer camps that he does. I did 2 of those. I got to know Maddie, his tech, really well through all of that. We come and hang out at shows. And then one day Maddie just texted me. He's like, hey, what's your email? And, I was like, I sent it to him. I was like, what's up? And he's like, our manager wants to reach out. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I get the email. I was like, he's just like, hey, you want to go support Dream Theater in Europe? And he's like, yes.
Yes. The fastest email, yes. Reply.
And it's
ever.
like it doesn't matter how hard it would be to put the tour together. Like this short notice will make it happen. It's gonna go down.
Oh, that's amazing. And you were mentioning before we started rolling the cameras that last night was the first time you got to play through John's actual live rig.
Yes.
Now we should talk a bit about. We'll come around to the guitar. I should say. Thank you, commercial intermission here to Ernie Ball for getting Jason over here for this interview.
Yep.
You've obviously gone Axe FX, as have many touring guitar players.
Yep.
Is that sort of a convenience thing, or what's the driving factor behind that?
Yeah, it's definitely both. The convenience and consistency of just being able to go anywhere. Like I take this on the plane with me.
Yeah.
Like this was my carry-on. Sometimes I have to argue with them to let me bring it on because the 4-space one. This is actually a 4-space. Yeah. I took the bottom part out here and just shoved it in just to try and make a little bit more room for gear. But usually there's a spacer right here. But the 3-space ones fit perfectly in like their baggage, sizer thing. So these do fit in the overhead, but I always have to argue with them. I'm just like, there's like $5,000, if not more, worth of audio equipment in here. You're not checking it. I have had the knobs get smashed by them before from forcing me to check it. But this thing is just awesome because I can take it anywhere. It's consistent. I know what it's going to sound like. I use patch changes for my solo stuff live, so the computer changes all of it for me. So I don't have to bring like a big giant pedal board or anything like that. There's a lot less components, a lot less factors in the rig, and I could still achieve everything that I need to, and it still sounds awesome at the same time. Yeah.
And I was asking you about John's rig as to whether he was still doing boogie or whether he'd gone over to something like this. And you were saying it's like both. It's the most epic rig ever. So talk us through what he's using and what it was like playing through it.
Okay, so from what I can remember from Maddie explaining to me, because they were all sound checking set up. I just saw Maddie on there with his guitar, and I walked. I was like, "Hey, can I try that?" And he just gave it to me and started explaining like everything that's going on a little bit more in detail than what I'd already known prior. But as far as I can remember, there's like an A-B of everything, A rig, B rig. So he's got like 2 of his boogies, 2 Axe FXs. Maddie has the RJM Mastermind foot switch back in his tech world, and then John has one that he uses out there as well. And I think they're using patch changes on top of all of that too. So it's like there's some sort of routing setup with the RJM, the MIDI controller that can like bypass and activate like the TC pedals that he has in there, all with just like one stomp on there for any like phasers or delays. Like the Axe FX has X since he's still on the 2s with his current setup. He has the 3s, but they haven't fully switched over yet. Because it would just take like it's going to take a lot of work to switch everything over to the 3 because of how much more this is capable of. Yeah. So there's choruses on his foot switch that are X and Y, like all of these different options that he could just have on tap all at once. And now he has 2 wireless packs with the TRS cable coming out of the Majesty. So the piezo. The piezo and the actual guitar are always active at the same time, and it just is a matter of just like changing the controls to. So for him to use whatever he wants.
But that's all for show, right? It's really just a Boss Metal Zone into a Line 6 Spider,
yep.
isn't it?
How'd you know?
So.
Yeah, how'd you know? Actually, a microcube.
Into a microcube.
Yeah.
Well, look, we should absolutely talk about, you touched upon how you got to know John through Music Man. Mm-hmm. Music Man have obviously been, you've done a signature guitar with them, which looks awesome. But so let's talk about how did you get to meet them? And I love it. We genuinely do love Ernie ball strings here.
Yeah.
Everything we use in this video room, we try and restring with Ernie ball strings.
Yeah,
These are the
awesome.
Paradigm ones. We normally just use the regular, normal ones, but hey,
Yeah,
whatever.
those are pretty similar from what they were telling me to that just the regular Ernie ball strings that people, a lot of people are very happy with and familiar with. Those are just a little bit like stronger. Like I think like 35% more tentile strength or something, whatever that adjective is. That means it's stronger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know when we did a video with Paul Gilbert to specifically see how strong these were, we were getting about between a semitone and a tone extra sort of
For bends
before the strings broke out of these. But
Yeah,
hey,
break resistant.
they are they're break resistant. Or break resistant. But anyway, so how did you meet because you said your first. No, not your first ever guitar, but like you
My first Music Man, I got when I
Was
was
a JP.
14. Yeah, and that was before I knew any of them. I saved up over a year to get that guitar.
Yeah, I
I would my guitar teacher Matt, he would pay me like $70 to mow his lawn because he knew I wanted the guitar. Although my dad and I deserved that $70 because that shit was like this high.
Is that a massive lawn? Yeah, I was going to say, that's a big lawn, isn't it, for $70? But
No, it was a normal sized lawn, but the first time we went over to do it, it was legit probably like 2-3 feet tall. And like you'd push the lawnmower like maybe like 3 feet and then it'd shut off. So you'd have to just go like so slow. So that first one, we definitely earned our money. But he knew I wanted it, so he would just overpay me like crazy whenever to go,
cool.
to go mow his lawn. I would do any other random stuff I could think of. One year, I just asked for my birthday just money from all of my friends, so I could get like a good amount up front to like motivate me.
I think it might have been Paul Reed Smith that said this to me once, but he's
smart. He knows what he's doing.
Anybody who says to you they can't afford something, a guitar, or it's a guitar he was talking about, not anything. He just said it's just because they don't want it enough.
Exactly.
And I think that you saying it's like, I wanted it so badly, I just did, I just mowed every lawn and did all these extra jobs and stuff. That's the truth, isn't it? That's how you get something that you really, really want.
Yeah, I decided that when I was 13, and it took me around a year to save up $1,735. And my dad told me if I could get that much, he'd pay tax because, that was obviously like an extra like 100 or two, which for a 13-year-old would have taken another minute to get. But yeah, I remember the first day I got it, I played it for 10 hours straight, and because I had been wanting to learn "This Dying Soul," which is a song off the Dream Theater Train of Thought album, and you needed 7 strings and 24 frets to play the whole thing, and I was learning all that stuff on a Gibson Les Paul before, which has 6 strings and 22 frets. So it can't be that limited. You know what I'm saying?
So you got the first JP7, and then now I've always said with Music Man guitars, they have such a unique feel to them that if you play one and it becomes your number one guitar, it's quite then difficult to sort of, maybe difficult is the wrong word, but it's not that appealing to go back and play anything else afterwards. So did you kind of find that with the JP7?
Yeah, honestly, the way you just put that's very, very, very well put. I haven't found any other guitar brand ever, or played another guitar that I've just been like, yeah, this is better. This is going to be my new thing. That's never happened for me, literally ever, and it's not going to. Like, it would have now if in like 15 years that I've been playing guitar or something like that. Now, if that was going to happen, it would have happened already, and it's not going to.
So let's have a tour of this guitar then. Let's have a spin it round and see what's it sort of based on. So
this is my Ernie Ball Music Man Artist Series Cutlass 7 guitar, and what's going on right with the top is it's not paint. Sometimes people are always just like, oh, dude, that paint job's so sick. I'm like, no, that's just rotted wood. Yeah. That's Buckeye Burl is the name of this wood. And I honestly, before I got here today, I hadn't seen one that had a top that exactly like this. They're all completely different because of the way Buckeye Burl works. Like the ones that I have a lot more of like this yellow kind of in there, but this one also looks like insanely sick in its own right with all this black that's in there.
It's weird. It looks like, I remember when I was a teenager, I used to read these like graphic novels, like sort of Dark Knight kind of graphic novels.
Yeah.
And all the artwork on here kind of looks like it's been drawn, doesn't it? But in a real...
It's got some like eyes or like faces or something in there.
It's just a really sort of almost like a spooky bit of wood, that, isn't it?
Yep.
It looks great. Okay, so that's presumably just the top though. Is it just for the visuals? The rest of it, what's the rest of the guitar made from?
So the body is alder, which you can also see the wood grain on as well, which I love a lot. I definitely wanted it to have a lot more of like the natural like wood aesthetic to it. Then we did like the black paint trim around to kind of mask the seams of the wood on everything. It's got an ebony fretboard, stainless steel frets. I chose ebony just because I don't know. For me personally, I can't really tell like maybe a tonal difference or anything like that. But out of every guitar I've ever played, all the Music Mans, even my Gothic Les Paul had an ebony board. It just feels faster for some reason. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on as to why. It just feels quicker to me. And then it's got a flame maple neck. This one has a flame maple neck. I've seen one that had a bird's eye, so that could possibly vary as well with just having all the natural grains in there. Locking, shallow tuners, like pretty much all Music Mans do. These are brand new pickups for this model. These are Music Man pickups, custom 7 ones that we made when we did this guitar. Full Music Man floating tremolo. It's got the mag boost here to make the preamp a lot hotter. I found that stuff like this is very useful for if you're playing on a rig you're not familiar with at all, like at an open mic or something. It's like if you need the solo just be a lot more ripping, and you need to, everything's not coming out as hot as you want it to.
You don't really do open mic nights, do you?
I don't.
I was just thinking, imagine going to your local open mic night and you're not on next, you're on the guy after next, but then Jason's the guy on before you. That's the bit where you just go, oh, my wife just phoned me. So is this a bit like, I mean, back in the day, people always used to sort of say, I'd take a tube screamer with me everywhere, because then it's like, regardless of what rig I had to plug into, I knew I could kind of just do something.
Yeah.
Is that almost
sort
of the angle?
One of the things that I use this the most for is there's this guest solo I have to play on one of my songs from Rick Graham, guitar player named Rick Graham. Yeah, he's nasty.
Actually, Rick, please come on. It's like
you don't live that far away.
No, it would be awesome. Anyway.
Yeah. But so he does this palm muted legato technique all the time, where he essentially is doing this crazy ripping legato, but he'll palm mute, and it has this like really like staccato kind of effect, and that's something like I can do it, but it's definitely, I'm nowhere near as good as it as him, and can't get it anywhere near as punchy. So if I'm like feeling like a little fatigued or something that day, I know if I throw this preamp on when I go to do that run, like, it just comes like right out like immediately, as opposed to where if the preamp's off, you have to pull off like so much harder to achieve that same kind of effect. Yeah, like,
and that's literally just because of the amount of extra gain that you've got.
Yeah. I'm gonna go on the lead patch. It might sound a little bit better. Then off. The gate's a little bit looser on this patch, so it's a little bit easier to get it to come out. But that's one example of what I use the preamp for, is for that lick and that solo. It's a lot easier to get that palm muted legato technique to come out. And then on this knob, so what this guitar can do is, because essentially the reason we went for the Cutlass for the Artist series is because like obviously I'd been playing the JP's guitars like my entire career pretty much for everything, because at the time that was the only 7-string Music Man made until this one. And I started getting a lot more interested in players like Mateus Sato, John Mayer, that more kind of like let's see, I'll go to the clean patch over here, like stuff like literally like I went and bought some Mateus tabs and like learned his songs, like stuff like that. So
he's another one. It's just such a tasty player.
Yeah, like so nasty. Yeah. So I started getting a lot more intrigued in that. So I asked Ernie Ball to give me a Cutlass. So they made me a one-off, just like one of the Super Strat guitars, 6-string, all single coil. It also has a Buckeye Burl top, and then they made a Buckeye Burl pick guard as well. Yeah, cool. The pick guard is Buckeye Burl, and they just laminated over it like 100 times to make it super, super strong. Full rosewood neck. It's like probably one of the most gorgeous guitars that I have. White binding on there too. Like, it's gorgeous. So I wanted to find a way to combine that Cutlass, that single coil Strat sound, with the JP guitars as well. So, and that's how we ended up with all the switching ideas that we have in here. So when the tone knob is down, with the switch all the way down, it's just the it's both bottom coils, you know. Like all that really like heavy metal, like that real heavy stuff that you can do. And then all the way up is just both of the neck coils. All of that, the crazy, like really smooth, like fast lead stuff. And then when you go right to the middle, then it immediately goes to coil split.
Okay.
So there's no extra motion you have to do to get to that coil tap sound. Because, you know, usually you would have to like push the tone knob up to get it to activate the coil split. The only time I would ever use all of the coils live for clean tone is just because I was lazy and I just didn't have enough time essentially in the song to push that to get to the coil split. Yeah. So we just made that go immediately to it when you put it in the middle. And then when the tone knob is up, now it's full single coil. So right now it's only the bottom coil, so it's like it's really like
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, like
come on, be honest. Who was expecting that? No.
All that kind of
You're
stuff.
throwing all the encores out now, aren't you?
But then, so this essentially, when this is up, it's only going to be single coil mode. So bottom coil, and then all the way up is that more of the all that kind of stuff. That was another Mateus lick. But and then back to the middle again, and then now it's just or back to the outer two again, and then yeah. That's pretty much the gist of this thing.
Well, it's very pretty. I mean, I guess it's, you know, not many people get to have a signature guitar, especially not from a brand like Music Man.
It's definitely.
That's very cool.
It's a weird feeling, that's for sure. Long time coming. It's definitely a pretty proud moment. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, congrats, man!
Thank you.
So what's the next few months hold for you? You got much longer on the road with Dream Theater, and
we got about a week left ish. Okay. I think I go home to 11th. I am in the UK on July 4th right now.
Absolutely.
Bit of a paradox going on right there.
It's fine. We won't arrest you or anything like that. We'll let you go.
Treason Day.
Yeah. It's all good. Yeah. It's all good. So hopefully you get to have a couple of beers tonight to celebrate that. More solo projects coming up, or
we're working on
all that remains, or
as soon as I get home from this, I think I have a couple more clinics with Ernie Ball, and then there's another All That Remains tour happening. I think we have some shows with Killswitch Engage, and then after that there's a few days off, and then we do Alaska, Australia, Hawaii. That'll be the first time I've been to Hawaii, which I'm really awesome. My girlfriend's gonna fly out. Hi, Alyssa, and we're gonna stay there for like a week, and then
it's not all tough then.
Yeah,
there are some perks. To
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. You get to see the craziest places you've never thought you'd go to. Like I played a show in Athens the other day, and I went and hung out the Acropolis.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Necropolis.
Acropolis. Yeah.
Acropolis?
Thank you.
Necropolis?
Yeah, I went and hung out at the Acropolis, which is one of the like craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Like that's still standing.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure having you on. I love seeing your new guitar. You know, your technique and everything is just crazy chops. So I'll put links in the description below to your website, and people go and find out more about you. And but it's been very cool, and good luck with the rest of the tour, man.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Cheers, guys, for watching. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe, and we'll see you in another episode soon. Here, look. Have a plectrum.
There we go.
We'll get that back. That was about a $10 plectrum by the time.
I have a bunch. You can keep it.
Thanks, man.
Sick.
Awesome.